Okay, every coach has been in this exact spot. You spend the entire week drilling a brilliant new tactical idea, and then, come match day, it just completely falls apart. So it makes you wonder, right? How fast is your team really learning?
I mean, this story is so familiar, isn't it? You bring in a new pressing trigger on a Tuesday. By the time Saturday rolls around, it's, maybe half right. A week later, you can see the old habits just creeping back in, and by that third match, it feels like you're right back at square one.
But here's the crucial part. This isn't about your players not trying hard enough. It's not a motivation problem. It's a learning curve problem. And the really good news? This is something we can actually measure. We're going to dig into the data from over 800 matches across Europe's top leagues to see what separates the quick learners from, well, everyone else.
All right, so let's think of this as a team health checkup. And the very first tool we're going to use is for the long-term view. It's called the learning curve, or LC for short. So the learning curve, it basically measures how steep that slope of improvement is after you introduce a tactical change. But just look at that number. The average score across Europe's top teams is a measly plus 0.05. That is tiny. It tells you that even at the very highest level, getting new ideas to truly stick is a slow and pretty difficult process.
And this is where you see a massive gap open up. You've got your top students, teams like Real Betis or Lazio, who just consistently get better. And then you have the dropouts, like a Burnley or Leicester, who actually flatline or even get worse after a change. For them, for whatever reason, the new tactics just don't take hold.
So long-term learning is one thing, but what happens when things go wrong? You know, when the team gets punched right in the mouth during a game? That brings us to our second diagnostic, the crisis diagnosis. This is all about how a team adapts when they're under pressure. We're talking about something called the adaptation rate, or AR. This metric is all about how fast a team can bounce back tactically after a major shock. You know, conceding a goal, getting a red card. It's really a snapshot of their in-game grit. Now, you'd probably expect a giant club to have the best score here, right? But the highest adaptation rate in the whole study belongs to Holstein Kiel. At the time, they were a newly promoted team, definitely didn't have the same resources. So why were they so good at adapting? Simple. For them, it wasn't a nice to have. It was a pure survival mechanism. So what does a score like this actually look like on the pitch? For a slow adopter like Lecce with a negative AR, letting in a goal at the 60-minute mark can completely derail their performance for the rest of the match. Now, contrast that with a Liverpool or a Chelsea. Their solid structure and great player-to-player communication means they can reorganize and get right back in the fight almost instantly. Okay, so we've looked at the team as a whole. Now let's zoom in a bit and look at the individuals. Our third diagnostic is all about understanding how your players actually absorb information. And that brings us to the Learning Preference Score, or LPS. This basically measures how diverse the learning styles are in your squad. Are your players mostly visual learners? Do they need to physically do it? Kinesthetic? Or do they learn by listening? Auditory? A high score here means you have a real mix. A low score means they're mostly all the same. So let's take a look at Ajaccio. They've got a high learning preference score, which means they have a real melting pot of learners. Now, as a coach, this is so important to know. If you only run drills on the pitch, you're completely missing out on your visual learners. You've got to coach in multiple dimensions to really reach everybody. Now, on the flip side, you've got a team like Palermo. Their squad is way more one-dimensional, just dominated by those kinesthetic learners. Now, on the one hand, that makes your life easier when planning sessions, but the huge risk is that you're totally ignoring the few players who learn differently. You're leaving them behind. We've looked at the team, we've looked at crisis moments, and we've looked at the individual players. Our last diagnostic looks at the process, the when. It's all about how you structure your entire training week. This is called Tactical Periodization Alignment, or TPA. It's basically a measure of whether your training week is set up to have your players peaking at the perfect moment on match day, both physically and mentally. It's all about the rhythm and timing of your work. And the impact of this alignment, it's huge. Teams with a high TPA, like Nottingham Forest, have their players showing up on match day buzzing, ready to go. But teams with low TPA, they get the timing all wrong. Their players might have peaked on Thursday, or maybe they show up underloaded and just not sharp enough. So we've done the full checkup. We've diagnosed the potential problems. Now for the most important part, the prescription. Here is how you turn all this data into a simple 4-step action plan. Think of this as your team's 4-step learning audit. First, track your learning curve. Are your ideas actually sticking long-term? Second, identify your adaptation rate. Are you resilient or are you fragile in a crisis? Third, survey the learning preference score. Are you coaching the individuals or just coaching the group? And finally, review your TPA. Is your whole week actually building towards Saturday? So what does this actually look like in practice? It could be as simple as keeping a little log after every tactical change to track your learning curve. It means you design your what-if scenarios before the crisis actually hits. It means making sure every single training session has something visual, something physical, and something verbal. And it means you start treating your weekly schedule as one of your most powerful tactical tools. And all of this brings us back to that one fundamental question. When you really look at your methods, your schedule, your communication, I want you to ask yourself honestly, is your coaching the accelerator for your team's learning or is it the brake?